So Wells Fargo, if you watch the show, you know bankers are all criminals. And the reason why they're all criminals is because they bought the lawmakers. So now they told the lawmakers to rewrite the laws so that their criminal activity is now legal. And even when they still break the law, they don't get prosecuted because the people who are supposed to prosecute them are also in the pocket of them. And they say, oh, it would cause too much disruption to the banking industry to prosecute people, so we don't. So why does horrible things keep happening? Because no one gets prosecuted. If you don't prosecute somebody, it's guaranteed it will happen again. So we're going to have another banking crash, and we're going to have much more banking fraud right out in the open, brazen, like what Wells Fargo did. Wells Fargo created 1.5 million illegal, corrupt, fraudulent accounts. They charged their own customers. They were ripping off their own. They had to fire over 5,000 people, and the guys at the top said they didn't know anything about it. So here, it's a long story, but what they were doing was they were having their employees keep making these fraudulent, opening fraudulent accounts and closing fraudulent accounts. And that way it would puff up their stock because it would make it look like to their investors that they're get way more accounts, they get way more business, they know blah, blah. So they raised their stock prices. The guys at the top who own the company, they cashed it in, they're golden. So here is Elizabeth Warren, and she's talking to the CEO of Wells Fargo after they just got fined $180 million and had to fire over 5,000 people for committing fraud against their own customers. And it wasn't an accident, so this means it's a business model built on fraud, Wells Fargo. So somebody should go to jail. Nobody's going to jail. Nobody's even losing their job. They're not even asked to give back the money that they made from the stock raise in there. So Elizabeth Warren has had enough of it. And she said this just this week to them. This is in Congress this week.
You haven't resigned. You haven't returned a single nickel of your personal earnings. You haven't fired a single senior executive. Instead, evidently, your definition of accountable is to push the blame to your low-level employees who don't have the money for a fancy PR firm to defend themselves. It's gutless leadership. Other big banks average fewer than 3 accounts per customer, but you set the target at 8 accounts. Every customer of Wells should have 8 accounts with the bank. And that's not because you ran the numbers and found that the average customer needed 8 banking accounts. It is because, quote, 8 rhymes with great. This was your rationale right there in your 2010 annual report.
Wow, that's really strong stuff. Really strong stuff. It's weird. It's weird that she's so upset about these bankers because she's full-throatedly supporting someone who's in bed with those same bankers. Maybe if you would have supported a guy, there was a guy running in this last primary who was for regulating them and rooting out all this stuff that's driving her crazy. His name was Bernie Sanders. She didn't support him. That's gutless. She's saying he's gutless. That's gutless. A guy finally comes along who's a progressive. You're in a position of power to do something about it, and now you're going to wag your finger? Hey, but guess what? The president is a frickin' Democrat right now. There's more. She's got more to say to this guy.
Do you know how much the value of your stock went up while this scam was going on?
It's all of my compensation is in our public.
Do you know how much it was?
It's all in the public filing.
Oh, you're right. It is all in the public records because I looked it up. While this scam was going on, you personally held an average of 6.75 million shares of Wells stock. The share price during this time period went up by about $30, which comes out to more than $200 million in gains, all for you personally. You know, here's what really gets me about this, Mr. Stumpf. If one of your tellers took a handful of $20 bills out of the cash drawer, they'd probably be looking at criminal charges for theft. They could end up in prison. But you squeezed your employees to the breaking point so they would cheat customers and you could drive up the value of your stock and put hundreds of millions of dollars in your own pocket. And when it all blew up, You kept your job, you kept your multi-million-dollar bonuses, and you went on television to blame thousands of $12 an hour employees who were just trying to meet cross-sell quotas that made you rich. This is about accountability. You should resign. You should give back the money that you took while this scam was going on, and you should be criminally investigated by both the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission.
What I'm glad is that it's not just Elizabeth Warren saying that. It's also Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine. Oh, it's not. It's not. People in her party, not saying it's just her. And this is her grandstanding. I don't want to say grandstanding. This needs to be said. So it's good that she's saying this. It's just weird that when she actually had a chance to affect policy, when she could have done something, when she could have stood behind a guy who wanted to put those guys in jail, this guy she's wagging her finger at, who's controls our government, which is why he's not in jail, which is why he gets to take his $100 million and go home after he committed fraud. Because they own our government. There was a candidate there who wanted to do all that stuff. So it's real hard for me. I have really mixed emotions about Elizabeth Warren. There was a chance to clean this stuff up. You think it's going to stop under Hillary Clinton? Do you really think it's going to stop under Hillary Clinton? She picked Tim Kaine, who's further to the right. He wants to deregulate Wall Street more. And this is who you're supporting. Because you didn't have the guts to stand up for your country when it mattered. Anything, Robert? What do you think?
I mean, it's just such an easy way for her to get her name on the scoreboard.
It just seems that way to me, and I don't want to say that.
But it's toothless. There's what marks does it leave? The guys. So this is the price he pays for being a super wealthy corporate CEO. Is he have to sit there and be embarrassed for 8 minutes?
He gets embarrassed he's got $145 million. Yeah. I think he's going to be okay.
I'll go to the principal's office.
For
that much money.
And by the way, he looks around that committee and he's got, I own all these people.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed.
Yeah.
We got this one little upstart. She doesn't know her place.
Right.
So she doesn't know her place. We'll show her place.
Yeah.
So about 2 weeks ago, I'm watching NBC News and nightly news at 6 p.m. They highlight how 2 black women have been stealing cosmetics. They show their picture and they ask not just one night, but 2 nights in a row, showing these 2 women.
I know, I saw that.
Stealing cosmetics. And they highlight these women so everybody's on the lookout.
On the lookout.
For these 2 women
stealing cosmetics.
who stole cosmetics.
Meanwhile, Wells Fargo is committing fraud against their millions of their own customers systematically. There's no picture on TV where to go get those people. There's no picture.
John G. Stumpf, Mr. John G. Stumpf is a piece of shit.
Oh, that's a school teacher. That's a school teacher.
In a country that took this kind of thing seriously, there'd be like a bailiff. Some guy would come up behind this dude. Yeah, this would be a courtroom. And he'd say, sir, put your hands behind your back. Please stand up. Put your hands behind your back. And they'd escort him out into a cage where he belongs. But that's not what happens. He just gets yelled at. He gets into his limo, gets a nice meal, probably yells at his wife about it or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
He has a bad night, maybe. Probably not. Talks to his lawyer longer than usual. Big deal.
So there's not going to be. So I guess our real problem is again and again and again. There's no justice.
There's no justice for. Again, we live in a completely corrupted society. It started when we let Nixon subvert the Constitution and not have to pay a price for it. So now people in power don't pay a price, right? People get to do war crimes. We get to crash the economy while while stealing money from hardworking Americans, crashing the economy while putting money in their own pockets. We order torture to cover up illegal wars. And nobody goes to prison. There's not even talk of it. In fact, when some people stand up and say enough is enough, like Occupy Wall Street, the Democratic president lets union cops bust their heads from coast to coast. Peaceful protesters. That's the country we live in. It's an oligarchy, and that's why if you think voting for Hillary Clinton is going to help anything, you are nutso. There's a little bit more to this.
I'm not sure what you're getting out of shitting on Elizabeth Warren, who's one of the few people actively in government who agrees with you.
Well, I'm saying that a lot of people feel like me whenever they see her do this. It's like there was a chance you could have really made a super big difference, and you didn't. And you called that guy gutless when your country needed you to make a difference, and you didn't. And you let your own Democratic National Committee be corrupted so much that they put their thumb on the scale for someone who's in bed with these guys. And she didn't scream about it. And she didn't say anything about it at all. In fact, she's now supporting the candidate who's in bed with these guys, Robert. That's why I'm saying this about Elizabeth Warren. It doesn't take any guts to do what she's doing, and it doesn't take any guts when she wags her finger at Trump. What takes guts is to stand up to corruption in her own party, something she can do something about. So that's what I'm saying. And I have mixed emotions. Like I said, I understand your point. She's one of the good ones, right, Elizabeth Warren? We have the Consumer Protection Bureau because of her, right? So it's with a heavy heart that I say this stuff about her. And it's about time, though. People have to start standing up to the neoliberals in our own party. And if she would have did it, if she would have got behind Bernie Sanders, we would have a different country right now. Because Bernie Sanders would have won. And she would win if she would have ran. Anybody would have beat what's happening. People want change. And Hillary Clinton is status quo to the nth degree, and people know it, which is why she's neck and neck right now in the polls with an orangutan racist xenophobe who is a complete incompetent. That's what's happening. So moments come in life. Her moment came and she missed it. Hopefully she'll get another moment. I don't see it happening because I see either Donald Trump's going to be president or Hillary Clinton's going to be president. I don't see where she fits in any of that.